Howdy, this is Dan Mink, the Rhinestone Roper. Today we're going to be making the Turkshead knot, or the Theodore knot. That's an end knot. I make it almost exclusively to put on the end of my trick ropes. Here's my attempt at being crafty. I put these double Turkshead knot with some color in between for the end of one of my reins. But today we'll be focused on making one for the end of a trick rope. Here are the tools we're going to use in this process. Got a 17-inch or 17-gauge stainless steel wire, imitation sinew, pair of scissors, pair of needle nose with a wire cutter, an ice pick to take the rope apart. This is a screwdriver that I ground down to make a sharp needle with. We'll have a needle to thread our imitation sinew, and we'll use some masking tape. The reason the Turkshead knot is a good knot to put on the end of your trick rope is because, start with, it looks good. Secondly, it's a round knot, and it's fairly smooth after you've used it a little bit. So when you're holding the rope in your hand, you may have to be twisting it. That rope, that round knot will spin there on your little finger with not much resistance. It just makes a nice place to stop your hand and to twist the rope. Each of these ropes has 20-some separate thread bundles in there. What we're going to do is we're going to fray this rope out, but leave those thread bundles together. There's one right there. We don't want to disrupt that, so we want to keep that together. We'll hook underneath each one of those and pull them apart. As we fray this rope, pulling these fiber bundles apart, you need to ask yourself, how much of this are we going to fray? We need to fray enough to make the knot. Now actually, the knot being tied only takes about that much rope. But in order to tie the knot comfortably, you need about this much. But we don't want to waste that much rope. So what we're going to do is we're going to fray about that much, and then each of the strands we actually tie in the knot will artificially lengthen it with tape. But to start with, we want to get a piece of wire and make a collar on the rope, which will make a stopping point for the fraying activity. And I've got a 17-gauge stainless steel wire here, about, I don't know, 4 inches of it. I'm going to cut this at a real sharp angle. Make a nice point there so I can shove it through the rope. We'll come down about this far, ought to be plenty. I'll work it in there. Now with my pliers, I could hold right back here and shove that wire through. But chances are, all that excess wire would go into one of my fingers. That's no fun. So I'm going to just work it about 1/8 of an inch at a time. Alright, it came through. I'm going to grab that wire poking out, make a hook there on it, so I can shove that hook back into the rope. Excellent. Now just wrap it around. And once will do. Cut that off, make it sharp, and put a hook on the end of that. Shove that sharp end back in the rope. Now I've got a collar, a good stopping point for when this rope gets down there, we'll fray this rope all the way down to that wire. So I'll go back to work picking out those bundles. Now we've got 18 fiber bundles plus the center of the rope. We need to divide these 18 bundles into equal parts of 4, and 18 doesn't divide by 4. We need 2 more to make 20. So we're going to put five of these bundles in each group, and the 2 groups that only have 4 bundles, we're going to split our core and pretend that that's a bundle. So I'll start over here with the first 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will make one of our four bundles. We're going to take these 5, divide them into 3, so we'll have 2 and 1 and 2, and then we're going to make a 3-strand braid. So we're going to start at the left side, take it over the center piece. That becomes the center. Now we'll take the right side, take it over what's in the center, and we'll just continue. We'll make that nice and tight. That's plenty long to make our knot there. So to hold this together so it doesn't come unwoven, we use our masking tape. Now, using our masking tape to hold that weave together is also handy because we can wrap it there and actually extend this bundle or this braid. And make it longer for purposes of tying the knot. There we go. Move to the next one. We'll take 5 of these strands. Alright, we've done our 2 braids with 5 complete bundles in them. So now we'll go to one of the four bundles with half of the core. And we'll put that half a core in with one of the white strands. Leave the red one by itself, just for kicks. Braid that. And we'll do the same with the next one. Alright, we divided our rope into 4 equal parts. Divided those equal parts into 3 strands and into 3-strand braid. We used our masking tape both to hold those braids together for when we make it easier to tie the knot, and we added extra tape to lengthen them out. If you have a nice long braid there, it's easier to tie the knot than if you shortened yourself up till you had just barely enough. So the key to making the Turkshead knot, or the Fyodor knot, is to remember over and under. Over and under. We're going to start with any one braid. We're going to go over the braid that's next to it and underneath the next braid. And all of our ends, once you've touched them, and they do that, we're going to kind of poke them back up towards our head here. So we'll take our second strand, go over the top of the one that's next to it and under the next one. And as you can see, we went over the top of this strand and underneath this tail here and underneath the next one. And that was easy to do because we pointed that one up. We'll point this one up too. Our next strand is right here. We'll go over the top of this one and under that one. Over the top underneath that thing, and under that strand, or braid I should say. We're going to keep this all kind of loose so we can see our pattern here, because we're going to take this last braid, go over the top of this one, and underneath come up that hole right there, go underneath that one and come up through that hole. So over the top, and then up through that hole. You can see how if we had short braids, that all would have been very difficult. We'll snug those up just a little bit, and then we take a look at what we got. We know we're on the right track because all of these things, all of the ends are pointed up out of that knot. If we had one that was going through something the wrong direction, it would be sticking down here someplace, and we have to force it up there, but that's not the case. All looks the same. That looks good. Now, if we grab a hold of one of these things and pull it tight, then we're not going to get the rest of them tight. So what we need to do is need to snug them all up gradually. Make sure they're not twisted. Take the twists out, snug them up gradually, just go around the edge of the knot. Grab a red one, pull that slack out and pull it out through the end. We'll just keep going around, snugging it up little by little. We haven't really pulled hard on anything yet. We will in a moment. As you're working through this, you want to keep your knot symmetrical. It's even all four corners, looks even. Looks even there, that's good. Now we're getting fairly tight and fairly small there. So I'll grab my ice pick and start hooking one of those braids, go around the whole braid. I don't want to shove it in the middle of that braid and pull one strand tight. But we'll shove it underneath that braid and we'll pull that slack out right there, pull that down pretty tight. And then we'll grab that end, pull the rest of it out. We'll just keep going around. Pull it up there, pull it out there. Now working on this one here. Now this one here. Okay, now we'll do this one here with the red spot. We're going to pull on it here and pull the rest of it out there. So bring that down so we can get underneath it. See if we can get that little bit of slack out. We got that much out. All right, that's fairly tight. We'll just rub on these now, give them each a tug. All right, there's our Turk's head, or the Theodore. Now, we'll examine this. It all looks uniform. It all looks, all those bumps are the same size. The four strands are all coming out the top of the knot. So we tied that correctly. If we put one of these braids through the wrong loop, then one of the braids would be sticking down here someplace, or the knot would not be symmetrical. Now that's it right there. You could leave it right there if you wanted to, and you can decide for yourself how much of a tassel you want on the end. And depending on your purpose, you might have longer tassel. If these are reins, just for looks, you might cut it off right here and undo these braids and fray it out, so you got a fuzzy long fuzzy end on the end of your reins. I found if I leave these things long for my trick roping purposes, then they collect dirt, they collect weeds, they get tangled in parts of my costume. So I want a little bit of a tassel, but I usually cut them off at about 1.5 inches right there. We'll wait to do that, because there's one more thing we can do with this, and that is we can make a tie right here. Now the reason I make this tie is because you got your rope and then you got the swell for your knot, and if we make that tie, we got another tight aspect of the silhouette. It's tight and then it blossoms out again with the fringe. And also, if you make a collar around here and tie it nice and tight, then these strands won't work their way down into the knot, and your knot will not come loose. If you leave your knot like this, every once in a while you'll need to tighten that knot back up to keep it looking sharp. So we'll work on that now. What we'll do is we'll work on making a collar for the tassel. I'll get one of my lace needle. These needles are made to string laces with, but it works for this too. So I'll retie my knot. Pull it tight right there. Open up my lace grabber. Put it back down. Okay, let's try that again. This lace needle is wider than the needle we just broke. So, go ahead and put it around there. Pull her tight. Find our V right there, and we'll start with our ice pick. Make a hole first. It came up through the center. Work that around a little bit. There we go. Okay, so pull that through. If we'd made that hole first with our ice pick, I wouldn't have broke off my other needle. Okay, we'll pull that snug. Pushing that collar up against underneath. Actually, it'll go up underneath the knot. We won't worry about that sticking out because I'm going to melt that in a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to squeeze all these strands together and wrap this sinew around the strands, right at the base, top base of the knot. Wrap it around there fairly tight several times. Then we're going to come back around, see if we can go back down through that hole. So we'll go underneath her. Actually, we'll just go right there. Go back through the same hole if we can. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Pull that nice and tight. Now I got a nice collar there. Got this here. Now all we need to do to tie this off is to make a knot like that we can slide up, slide right down there next to our other knot. We'll tie one more knot, slide it up there. And cut that off. Twist these together. Now use a lighter and melt them. Then we'll take the side of our lighter to smooth that out. Now if you feel that, that's all smooth. That'll spin on my fingers just fine. Now we'll cut it off, cut our tape off, leave however much fringe we want. Take the rest of our tape off. All right, well there's our Fyodor knot. We could have done a double knot if we'd have frayed off a foot of rope instead of six inches. I took the rest of the tape off of the 4 braided strands and frayed them out, so we got about an inch and a half of tassel. We got a big black spot there. Now it's not a problem, the audience can't see that black spot anyway. The reason it's a big black spot is because I had so much of that imitation sinew sticking out. When I melted that whole big patch, it made a big black spot. But the good thing about having a bunch of it there is that all mashed together and filled in that little gap with melted sinew, melted plastic really, and that all ended up very, very smooth. If you don't like that, you could put some paint there so it wouldn't look black, but it feels really good in my hand. That'll be a good rope for trick roping. All right, that's your Fyodor knot. Thanks for coming by.